Hello, everyone. Alongside the dogmatic Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and welcome to the Pick Six, the podcast by the Attractions Group, where we bring you the latest stories from the attractions and amusement industry.
Hey, before we delve into this week's Pick Six, let me remind our listeners where they can tune into the Attractions Group podcast. You can catch us on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on X at attractions_GRP. And hey, we do a video version on YouTube. So make sure you hop on there, look for the Attractions Group podcast, and hit that subscribe button. Don, kick us off for story number 1.
Carowinds has announced the final lineup for the upcoming 10-day Carowinds Summer Music Fest, amplified by Coke Studio. The festival will culminate with the addition of Grammy, CMA, and ACM award-winning singer-songwriter Carly Pearce. Known for her authentic country sound and dynamic performances, Pearce will take the stage on July 19th, accompanied by chart-topping country artist Nico Moon and singer-songwriter Hannah Ellis. Hosted at Carowinds on-site amphitheater, the Palladium, this multi-weekend festival combines thrilling rides like Fury 325 with live music, offering guests with the ultimate summer destination experience. Some of the other notable performers that they have during this include Bret Michaels, Leanne Rimes, and Toby Mac. For more information, visit carowinds.com.
Makes me wonder if this is successful, if they're going to try it again at the other parks. Because this shouldn't be unique to one property if it's done correctly. But it sounds like their lineup is really strong.
It's an outstanding lineup, and some real notable performers.
Yeah. Well, going into the darker side of things, this is something I'm kind of excited for. Universal Orlando has begun the process of announcing the haunted mazes for the 2024 edition of Halloween Horror Nights. Typically, these announcements come earlier in the year. However, the announcements are coming in late, but fast this year. This change is likely because of the Epic Universe Deep Dive series, which they've been coming out with periodically over the past couple months. As of this writing, 4 houses have been announced, all of which are non-IP houses, so they're original houses. These include Slaughter Cinema, which is a sequel house to the first Slaughter Cinema, which was about B movies, Major Sweets Candy Factory, Goblin's Feast, and the Museum of Deadly Exhibits. This sounds super exciting. I love horror nights, and these look like they're going to be awesome houses.
They do look like awesome houses, and definitely something that I want to try to get to Orlando in the fall to experience Halloween Horror Nights. It's been a minute since I've been there for this event, so hopefully I get back there.
Yeah, I already booked my VIP tour for the 3-house tour for opening weekend. I booked that earlier today. All right, moving right along.
The Memphis Zoo has unveiled plans to enhance the habitats for its African elephants, rhinos, and giraffes. In a statement released by the park Monday by the public relations team, the zoo outlined its comprehensive campus plan priorities over the next 20 years. The zoo aims to invest up to $250 million to reimagine its facilities. This ambitious project will improve animal care and conservation efforts while strengthening the zoo's role as a vital community amenity through enhanced guest education and experiences.
I like turtles.
We all like turtles, Dawn. We all like turtles. All right, next up. So news out of Cedar Point, because Cedar Point is the place where all the news comes from this time of year, I guess. But visitors at Cedar Point may have noticed something missing from the water park recently. Parts of the cross-current slide complex in Cedar Point Shores have been removed, with only the large blue side still intact. According to Cedar Point spokesperson Tony Clark, the pink and yellow slides have reached the end of their service life. Despite these changes, the cross-current complex still remains listed on Cedar Point's website. Clark confirmed that these are the only attractions not opening this year. Interestingly, Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Cedar Point's sister park, announced last week that it is also removing its similar slide complex for a 2025 replacement. Social media posts about this have since been deleted. This suggests that both parks may be planning a water park enhancement for 2025. Cedar Point Shores opens for the 2024 season this Saturday, so it's the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. It's very so slides do reach the end of their service life because I've got a feeling people are going to say in the comments that doesn't happen, but it does. In fact, you can confirm or deny, but I think that some of the slides in Soak City at Kings Island have been replaced in the last couple of years. They just did it quietly because it's just fiberglass. But this does happen. But
they fatigue.
They do, and mainly I think things chip and stuff like that, and it becomes like a danger over time. I don't think it's a fatigues in a manner in which it's like you're going to fall through it, but especially with some of the slides that are older that are bolted together, you start feeling those ridges coming down on your back, on your shoulder blades and stuff. So at that point, it's time to go. But yeah, it's very interesting that the Goose may very well have been given away with this, with Dorney Park's announcement that they were removing the slides for something new next year. And then Cedar Point announcing that they're removing the slides, but not necessarily to do anything with it next year.
I found it interesting that Dorney Park removed those posts from their channels. But yeah, I mean, definitely it looks like there's going to be something in 2025 at both parks in the water park.
Yep. Always a good time. Always a good time. What's next?
Hershey Park is now open for daily summer fun, offering an array of delicious new food items across the park. This summer, guests have even more reasons to return to Hershey Park for both lunch and dinner. So you don't want to miss the brand new sandwiches at Milton's Ice Cream Parlor, Nashville Hot Chicken Garlic Knots, and Flatbread at Dispatch, and the rotating Burger of the Month at East Coast Burger Works. So you're going to come for the rides, but you're going to stay for the food at Hershey Park.
The sweetest place on earth. Yeah, it's really cool. The food pictures that I've seen have been absolutely incredible. But speaking of food, let's talk about Knott's Berry Farm for Knott's Chicken Dinner Restaurant. So Knott's Berry Farm is celebrating the 90th anniversary of Mrs. Knott's Chicken Dinner Restaurant with special events throughout the year. The restaurant, which began in the 1920s when Cordelia Knott sold hot biscuits and homemade preserves, has become a beloved fixture for America's first theme park. To mark this milestone, Knott's will host a variety of events. For details, visit knotts.com. Now, I have not been to Knott's. I have not eaten the Knott's chicken, but I've heard I'm missing out.
Ryan, you are missing out. It's a big deal at Knott's Berry Farm. When you think of a place like Kings Island, known for its blue ice cream, some other parks have their signature food items. Dollywood has its cinnamon bread. For Knott's, it's Mrs. Knott's chicken dinner. And it is, some of the best, fried chicken that I've ever had.
Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to the listener question. And I'll read the first one because I feel like this is a better one for you to answer.
Okay.
If I can find it in my notes. Here we go. So this one's from Jim Stone, and he's from Minnesota. So he said, American Coaster Enthusiast is approaching 50 years old, launching in 1978. Why do you think the club has survived and is still going strong? Don, what are your thoughts?
Would say it's clearly because of the people, the volunteers. There's always been so many people that have just dedicated a lot of time to the club over the years. So I think it always, when you look at any place out there that has longevity, you always have to look at the people that are involved, and that's why it's successful. And as some of the you go back to when it launched in 1978, every time that it's some of those have phased out, they've been replaced by someone else that cares and is just as passionate as they were. And I think that's been the key, just the people that are involved.
Yep, rigid elections. Now, I think that being first certainly helps. Being the largest most certainly helps, because if you look at the other groups, and and I don't mean this to be insulting or anything, but the other groups serve different functions. But from the standpoint of the parks, you don't need other groups. You just need ACE, because if you need 30 people for filming, ACE can do it. So I think that's part of it, and I think the fact that they were the first one, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any more coaster clubs really popped up until the late 90s. So they had a 20-year head start.
They had a head start on everyone else. Yeah, they had a head start on everyone else. But I think, some of the other clubs that they just really never got off the ground because, YouTube started to come about. A lot of individuals decided to create their own YouTube channel. They didn't need some of these other smaller clubs that were less expensive than Ace to be able to attend media days. And for some, that's what it's all about. And I can tell you, going back to my first experience with Ace in 1981. Yeah, that's one of the benefits that Ace members do get to be invited to some of these media events around the country, throughout North America. But that's not really why a lot of these individuals join the club. They do it for things like the preservation efforts, just different parts of it. So I think that's been part of it too. Why they've had such success is that it's not reliant on getting invited to media days to maintain the membership.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of not answering the question. I think that if this question was why are they successful now, that's the perfect answer. It's camaraderie, it's the conservation efforts, it's the people. But
the people, the leadership.
But all those, I maybe it does answer the question because it does kind of culminate over the course of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where it's always like that, and it's always about, they have events and they have media days and stuff like that. But if you join for that reason, that's not always necessarily going to mean you're going to be in 30 years from now. Because the people that I know that have been in Ace since the beginning, since the 80s, since the 90s, often are just entirely passionate, and they want to find people that are like-minded, that want to talk roller coasters with them. And I think that's the primary focus of the club, and that probably attributes to its success.
No, it does.
Right. Great question. Don, why don't you read the other one?
The next question comes from Jeff from Arlington, Texas. He says, love the Attractions Group pod and what you guys are doing. It's different and more interesting than other theme park related pods, so we appreciate that. He says, my question is, what do you like better, Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom?
I've never been to Disneyland, to be honest with you.
Well, for me, it's the Magic Kingdom, and here's why. Because it was the first of the Disney parks that I ever went to. It kind of feels like my home park. When I go to Disney World, there's the different parks there, but it still feels like Magic Kingdom is my home park. When I go to Epcot, I'm still thinking Magic Kingdom as my home park. So I think that's a big part of it for me, just because it was the first one I went to. I'd been there maybe 15, 20 times before I ever went to Disneyland. Been to Disneyland a couple different times. I like the history, the nostalgia at Disneyland, but it just doesn't feel like the home park to me compared to the other one.
So it sounds like it's unique to you, because from all accounts that I've heard, Disneyland is the superior park, and it does have the history and stuff like that. But
like I said, I love that though, Ryan. The history, the nostalgia. I mean, that's all, everything like that. But it's just when something becomes kind of like you feel your home park, I think that kind of gives it the edge sometimes when something else may be a little bit better. But that's why, just for me, just from personal reasons. Not that I'm not saying it is better. I'm just saying personally, for me, I would choose Magic Kingdom.
Well, I mean, to be clear, his question is, what do you like better? It's not which one is better.
Right.
But what's funny is you said you go to the other parks, especially down in Florida, and you just wish you were back in Magic Kingdom. I'm kind of the same way with Epcot. I would. There's something about Epcot and just how quirky and weird and illogical it is that I just absolutely charm. And since I've become an annual pass holder, I've come to appreciate Epcot more, because you're better off. It's a park where you can just hang out. And as an adult, I love that. My favorite park until recently was Hollywood Studios. But with Hollywood Studios, it hasn't been the same since they did the Star Wars and the Toy Story stuff. It's
right. It changed the dynamic of that park. What the vibe of it was when they did that. But for Magic Kingdom, and some of my favorite attractions are there. Love Haunted Mansion, love Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain. So there's a lot of reasons why I love that park. Disneyland, I like the just comparing the differences in the rides like the Pirates of the Caribbean. I think the one at Disneyland, I like that one better than I do the one at Magic Kingdom. But just overall, I just think that, like I said, I love the history, love the nostalgia and everything with Disneyland. But I just feel more at home at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. So let's turn this over to the audience. So If you're watching this video on YouTube, which it seems like more and more people are choosing to do that, which is cool. What do you prefer, Disneyland or Magic Kingdom, and why? And I don't want anybody to go in there and say Tokyo, Disney. That's not what we're asking. Disneyland or Disney World, East Coast or West Coast. We want to know.
That's right.
All right. Well, that wraps up another Pick Six. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify. Watch us on YouTube. Search for the Attractions Group Podcast. Hit that subscribe button and follow us on X at attractions_GRP. We'll see you next week.